Hello and welcome to timeBomb. In today's episode, we're discussing a long-standing conflict between the United States and Mexico that is starting to turn ugly. Mexico has fallen behind its obligations under an 80-year-old treaty to deliver water to the United States. And this is not anything new. For decades, Mexico has resisted water deliveries to the United States from its reservoirs in the Rio Grande Basin. But now, some Texas towns have reached the breaking point and are calling on Congress to get involved. Just how nasty could this fight get? You're about to find out. You know what to do. Hit that like button. Tell me off in the comments section. This is timeBomb. Let's get started. At the heart of this story is a treaty that goes back to 1944 and dictates how the United States and Mexico share water in certain border regions. The treaty requires the United States to deliver 1.5 million acre-feet of Colorado River water to Mexico every year. It also requires Mexico to deliver 1.75 million acre-feet of Rio Grande water to the United States over a 5-year cycle. Ideally, that would be broken up into equal increments of 350,000 acre-feet per year. The United States has fully complied with its treaty obligations. But Mexico has consistently fallen behind, waited till the last minute, or simply failed to deliver the water, leaving farmers in the Rio Grande Valley in the lurch. During the current 5-year water delivery cycle, which began on October 2020, Mexico has delivered about as much water as the United States would hope to receive in a single year. In fact, Mexico has fallen short on its obligations by hundreds of thousands of acre-feet in nearly every 5-year period since the mid-1990s. The Rio Grande once flowed as a mighty river from the mountains of southwestern Colorado to the Gulf of Mexico. But centuries of growth and development, and more recently drought, has essentially cut the river in two. Its upper reach runs dry just past El Paso's westernmost point. Downstream, rivers that flow from mountains of northwestern Mexico feed a new section of the Rio Grande along the Texas border. Well, at least they're supposed to. Those flows have diminished as Mexico has increasingly dammed its rivers and built new reservoirs since the signing of that 1944 water-sharing treaty. The water that flows from Mexico to the downstream portion of the Rio Grande is captured in two reservoirs, the Falcon and the Amistad. Under the terms of the treaty, the water in those reservoirs is shared between the two countries. These two reservoirs are strategically located on the Rio Grande and are designed to store, measure, and deliver Mexico's water obligations to the United States. But the lack of steady flows from Mexico has left the United States' share of water in the reservoirs at 28% and 12% of their capacities. And the hot and dry season is just getting started. The lower Rio Grande region has been experiencing extreme drought for the past few years. But drought is nothing new to this area. The region is particularly susceptible to drought conditions due to its semi-arid climate. So why are we experiencing this issue now? Well, to answer that question, we need to go back to 1994, when the North American Free Trade Agreement, also known as NAFTA, came into effect. Since NAFTA, northern Mexico has shifted from dry commodities such as corn, sorghum, and cotton to high-value fruits and vegetables they can sell on the U.S. markets. Unfortunately, these high-value crops require far more water to cultivate. But there are also other factors that are adding to this issue. Mexico collects very little data on how much water is being used and by whom in the Rio Grande Basin. We also do not have data on how much water soaks into Mexico's unlined canals or evaporates in that extreme heat. All of this just keeps compounding, leading to the situation we're in today. The inconsistent water deliveries from Mexico have exacerbated water shortages impacting South Texas farmers. Many farmers are facing reduced crop yields and financial losses. For example, the Rio Grande Valley sugar growers' sugar mill had to close in February due to repeated water shortages after 50 years in operation. It was the last sugar mill in Texas and employed over 500 workers. According to the Texas Tribune, the overall economic loss to the agriculture sector in the Rio Grande Valley alone is estimated to be nearly $496 million for just 2023. This water is also the primary water source for millions of Texans. Cities and towns have had to implement water restrictions to conserve dwindling resources. For example, McAllen, Texas is currently under Stage 2 of their Water Conservation and Drought Contingency Plan, which limits the use of water for non-essential purposes, such as watering lawns, washing vehicles, and filling swimming pools. After spending years trying to negotiate with Mexico, lawmakers in Texas and across the country are finally fed up. Last week, the 2 senators from Texas and a bipartisan group of 8 House members crafted this letter to congressional budget leaders asking them to withhold U.S. aid until Mexico has agreed to provide more reliable and consistent water deliveries to the United States. Now, they didn't say exactly what aid should be withheld or how much should be withheld, but the point is clear. Mexico needs to understand that the United States is serious about upholding the terms of the treaty, and the water needs to be delivered now. Of course, the current shortage of water in the region is the cause of this situation, but Mexico has, as recently as 2022, the ability to deliver the water. In an interview last week, Senator John Cornyn from Texas stated that in 2022, a tropical weather system dumped enough water in 8 different Mexico reservoirs that they could have made good on their water debt to the United States. But even during that time of abundance, they failed to open up any of their dam gates to release any of that water downstream to fill up the Amistad and Falcon reservoirs. The situation in Mexico is dire. 2023 was the driest year on record since 1941. Currently, 82% of the country is in some category of drought, and 50% of the country is experiencing severe, extreme, or exceptional drought conditions. In the capital, Mexico City, home to 22 million people, is facing day zero, the complete loss of fresh water at the taps. And thanks to this water crisis, opposition to sending water from Mexico to the United States has grown significantly. One Mexican senator said that delivering water to the United States could make irrigation impossible across large swaths of Mexico and could impede growth and development along its northern border. There is even public unrest and protests in some of the northern cities like Chihuahua. Back in 2020, Mexican farmers occupied the La Boquilla Dam in Chihuahua State to prevent the government from sending water to the United States. The fact is, Mexico does not want and is not willing to make good on their obligations to deliver water to the United States. The current 5-year water cycle will end on October 24, 2025. Between now and then, Mexico is required to deliver over 1.25 million acre-feet of water to the United States. Now, unless this region receives a lot of precipitation from this year's hurricane season, I do not see Mexico meeting their water delivery obligations. This situation is changing quickly, but I will do my best to keep on top of it and let you know when there's updates. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back with another episode next week. In the meantime, please check out some of my other videos and consider subscribing. I really appreciate your support.